And we're
We're
live.
live again. So today we are here to have a fireside chat about the business of coaching for the International Coaching Week 2021 with Kim-Adele and Sindy Kaur. Hopefully it's pronounced Kaur with some luck. And and both of you are coaches. So I've got a load of questions here, which took a long time to create. And we're going to kind of talk a bit about coaching, what it is. But I think first it'd be good if you both explain, kind of how you became a coach and what you actually do. So I think Sindy first would be good, if you don't mind.
Okay. So my background is in corporate retail. I worked for a leading health and beauty retailer for 13 years, mainly in marketing and trends management. And I took the opportunity for redundancy at a time in my life when I felt like things needed to change. And I had a bit of a burnout, and part of my recovery was using a coach. And what I learned through that journey was so profound. I thought, I've got to know more about this. So I spent a year retraining as a life coach, and now I work with quite often people who've left the corporate world to set up their own business, because the mindset you need as an entrepreneur and set up your own business is completely different to when you're a small cog in a big wheel. So that's a very quick summary.
Thank you. So Kim, how about you?
So not dissimilar, really. So I had most of my career was corporate. And I did quite a lot. I was very fortunate. I got a coach relatively early on and realised just how life-changing it can be when somebody asks you the right questions that help you to really unlock what you're thinking and where you get in your own way. And then I realised I spent a lot of my time coaching within my jobs. So was lucky enough to be part of the graduate schemes for a few years, helping other people, and then decided when I had my little girl that I was fed up of being the boss and just wanted to be helping other people to live their best life. So retrained to be a coach, and have been doing it for the last 3 or 4 years.
Fantastic. So can you, I think I'm going to ask you first, Kim, can you explain what coaching is and what coaches do exactly?
Yeah, great question. So coaches really help you to see your own blind spots, because we all have blind spots for a reason. We're blind to them. We can't see what they are. And that can be the thing that holds us back. It can be a self-limiting belief. And your coach really is going to help you to uncover that, to find your answer. And obviously there is also quite a lot at the moment around whether or not you get a coach or a mentor. And for me, the difference between the two is a coach is the person that's going to help you unlock your answer. A mentor is somebody who's been there and done it, so therefore can probably show you the way. And sometimes you need a combination of the two. Just defines where you are at the moment.
Thank you. So what about you, Sindy? What is coaching to you, and what does a coach do exactly?
I guess what a coach does, it helps you to gain clarity about what you want, and then to make decisions that are in line with your values. That was a real life changer for me. And then also, as Kim was saying, to identify what are the limiting blocks that are stopping you from taking the action that you need to in order to get to where you want to be. Whose voices are in your head that you need to evict.
Love that.
Super. So I think, Sindy, would you mind answering this first? Why are people turning to coaches for help? Because it's probably along the lines of what you sort of just started to talk about, really.
I think that over the last year, there has been a lot of uncertainty. I think it's really shaken people. We've had lockdown, we've had homeschooling, we've had home working. People have spent time with their families. So the whole work-life balance thing is in. I used to be in the office at 7 in the morning in the dark, and I'd leave at 7 at night in the dark. And when I actually left for the first sunshine, so there's you really start to question what's what's going on. There's been a lot.
I can't actually hear.
Oh,
Can you?
can you
Sorry, I lost
hear
your
me?
sound there for a minute.
My back?
Yeah.
Yeah. Okay, so I'm not sure where you heard up to. So really, I think there have been a lot of emotions around things like fear, around lack of certainty. People have been told that you've got to behave in a certain way in order to be safe. And I think people have just basically closed down a little bit. And what we're seeing emerging, or what we've seen over the last year, is some people have become rabbits in headlights, and they've just been paralyzed by fear. And when you're in that state of mind, it's very difficult to make decisions and to see things clearly. On the other hand, you've had people who have maybe pivoted, they've looked at new opportunities, they've taken the bull by the horns, and they've gone out there. And I think the big difference between the two has been mindset. And so I think what we're going to see now is, people, as they start to come out of fear, they've got more in touch with their values. They've got more in touch with something doesn't feel right about how I was living my life, but I don't know what to do about it. And like Kim was saying, if you don't know what your blind spots are, you can't deal with them. But also, when it's your own blind spots or when it's your own stuff, it's very difficult to work through it. It's easy just to push it away and say, oh no, that's too difficult, I won't deal with it. So having somebody there to actually support you through the process can be really powerful.
Very much so. So over to Kim on that one. Why are people turning to coaches for help, Kim?
I think people have realised that they don't have to do it on their own, and that actually there's no shame in asking for help. In fact, there's been a massive swing over the last probably 10, 15 years. I remember years ago, there used to be a stigma. If you had a coach, it probably meant you weren't very good. And you were given one to help you get better and to achieve. Whereas now people realise that actually having a coach means that you're investing in yourself and your desire to be the best that you can be. And when we look at most top athletes, politicians, business people, they've all got a coach. So it's kind of really changing that dynamic, I think, to allow people to go, well, actually, it isn't because the coach is better than you. It's because they're able to stand behind you and see where you get in your own way and where you perhaps run a little bit to the left. And if you didn't, then you could shave some time off your personal best. So I think that's why. And I think also, people we've all been thrown into the pandemic and how we make that work for us. And all of a sudden, we've got teams that we're trying to lead remotely. We're trying to balance, as Sindy said, our new lives, and often you've got the children you've got to try and deal with. You've not been able to see as much of your wider family and friends. You've probably, some people have been locked in on their own. And I think it's made people realise that they want to do something a little bit different, and maybe there's a time for change. And it can be hard to make that change on your own because you don't always know how to do it. You might have an idea of, I want to do something different. I want to make this a pivotal time for me to go and do something else. But actually, there is that fear, and the only thing greater than fear is hope. And I think that's why people are turning to coaches, to find the hopeful way of moving from where they are to where they want to be.
Yeah. I mean, I think when you look at professional athletes, just as an example, they have multiple coaches they have conditioning coaches, they have, strength coaches. There are all sorts. I mean, if you were a professional, say you were a UFC fighter, right, you'd have a dietitian, you'd have probably 5, maybe 7 coaches potentially, depending on obviously who you are and what discipline your disciplines you're training in, right? So how can coaching benefit you then in your life and business, Sindy?
So I talk about how it benefited me. For me, the biggest thing was getting to know why I respond to certain things and certain people the way I do. And that was very much getting in touch with my values and understanding that, we hear about company values, social values, family values. But as individuals, we all have our own set of personal values that drive how we feel, how we respond to things, what motivates us, what makes us feel good. So it helps us to understand where there's conflict, and it stops us needing to be right or the other person needing to be right. Because when you understand it's a values-based thing, you can step out of the emotion and process things in a different way. The other thing is around your beliefs, around how we limit our own potential, how we build our own glass ceilings. I mean, I'm doing things now that I never would have done in the corporate world, because when I was in the corporate world, a lot of my striving for success was driven by low self-esteem. I had to prove to other people that I was good enough because I didn't believe it. But because of that, I was giving my power away to what other people think. Since I've trained as a coach and had coaching myself, I've taken that power back, and now I don't mind what other people think. It doesn't stop me doing things. I had huge imposter syndrome in the corporate world. And again, I'm not saying that that isn't still here, but I know how to deal with it. I know it's just a message that I'm growing and doing something different. So for me, it's been life-changing. It's given me control back of my life, and it's given me the courage to fail, to try new things. Something like this I could never have done a few years ago. You know, it's a case of being able to put yourself out there. And then what I found is, I run a coaching program called Your Power Behind the Mask. And the idea is that when we feel so sort of strong within ourselves, it gives us the courage to take our masks down. When we take our masks down, it gives other people permission to take theirs down. And it's in that place of vulnerability that true connection happens.
Very much so, very much so. So Kim, how about you? How can coaching benefit you in your life and business?
So I think, just as Sindy said, and I had a similar experience. I guess for me, the coaching, what really helped me do was work through the labels I was using. So, I was instead of responding to what was happening, I was responding to what I made it mean. So, anything that happened, I would then turn it into, well, that's because you're hopeless, Kim, or you're just a hairdresser, and you shouldn't really be doing what you're doing, and they're going to find you out. Realize that, you aren't where you're supposed to be. But actually, all of that was just bad labeling. So I was kind of creating these labels and then making them my truth. And that's what I was then fighting against, I guess. So there was probably a 20-odd year period where it didn't matter what accolade I won, what award I won, what praise I got given, what opportunity I was presented with. I didn't feel like I earned them. I didn't feel I deserved them. And most of the time I couldn't even accept them. So you'd kind of like brush them off. I remember winning one award that I so didn't believe I deserved. I took it into the office and gave it to the team and left it there. Because I couldn't see that it was mine. And now you can look back and go, wow, what a distorted view of the world, and what an awful way to live. We think about some of the language that I used on myself, I wouldn't use on another human being, even if I didn't like them. And yet I used it on myself for a lot of years. So having a coach really helped me understand what I was doing to myself and the impact it was having. And allowed me to come up with different labels, different questions to ask myself, and have the confidence to fail, I guess. So for years I'd been so scared of failing. Didn't mean to say I didn't fail, but I was terrified of it. So much so that even if I wasn't failing, I still thought I was, because it was such a big fear. Whereas now, actually, the fear of failure doesn't worry me that much, because we learn. The only time we genuinely fail is when we stop trying, when we give up putting ourselves in this position where we can grow. Because every day, as my nan used to say, and bless her, she was right, every day's a school day. I think once you get into that mindset that says there's only two things that can happen, I can either get it right or I can learn a way not to do it for next time. And either one of those moves me forward. It allows me to be in control of where I want to go. Is such a liberating way of living, having lived for nearly 30 years the other way, where I just doubted everything, and it's not a great place to be. Yeah,
I agree. I think it can certainly free you up to live your best life. I mean, that's in essence what we're talking about, the life that you actually want to design. And I never really believed in that until I started creating the life that I want to live. And nothing is perfect, but if you're working towards something that is the direction that you want to aim towards, then you can actually see it. And having someone along the journey with you. I mean, I've probably got 5 coaches in total, various different things like sports coaches and, all sorts of different coaches, right? But actually sharing the vision of where you want to get to and perhaps discussing with them like the vision of where you want to go is so powerful, because it's like having a supporter who helps you hold on to that vision of where you want your life to go, right? So I think, I'm sold on coaching, really. My friend Charlie actually introduced me to my first coach. Maybe I think I had a coach about 20 years ago, but I didn't really appreciate what it was. And like you say, coaching has just evolved in the past 15 years. And people aren't so stigmatized around saying that they have a coach or they have coaches or whatever, right? But I think a lot of people are kind of worried, about money and things like this, right? But so who do you think should consider hiring a coach? And how much do you think it should cost, Kim?
For me, I think, anybody who's wanting help to unlock their potential and live the life they dream of. If you're not living the life you dream of right now, then it's worth considering getting a coach who's going to be able to help you. Because some of that is in having those conversations where you start to define it. Often we know what we don't want, but we've not clearly defined what we do. And it's very hard to go and achieve what we want if we don't know what it is that we're looking for, because we don't know how to go and find it. And that can be kind of what a coach does. And I think for me, the how much does it cost, that can really vary, dependent on who it is you want to get coaching from, what kind of coaching it is that you're looking for. So I think I would suggest people do the research, go and have a few conversations. Most coaches will do you a free complimentary initial consultation, and it really has got to be a personal choice. When I talk to potential clients, very much our first conversation is, do you think you are going to be able to know, like, and trust me? Because if you don't, then you're not going to open up to me. You're not going to tell me what you really want to be able to achieve, and therefore you're not going to get the result that you want. But likewise, I'm looking to see, do I think that they're going to trust me? Do I think they're going to tell me what their real dream is? Because if not, I'm not going to be able to help them achieve it. And actually, I want to be able to help people. So it really is a kind of, I guess, a marriage. You're wanting to make sure that you align with each other, that you've got a similar value set, that you've got that trust there, that you're able to share your biggest dream and turn it into a reality. So I always suggest to people, do the research, meet a few. Don't, just leap in there and hope for the best, because this is a big investment in your life. So you want to make sure that it's a good one.
Yeah, and if you hire the wrong coach, it could be really bad. But also a lot of coaches, like, they will coach you for free, right? Like, they do pro bono things and proportion of time they give away to help people, right? I mean, because you find that if people have been in a bad place themselves, they like to give back, right? And that's, I think, really quite important to remember. So same question to you, Sindy. Who do you think should consider hiring a coach, and how much does it cost?
So I think, when I take on people, I always have a conversation first to see where they are in terms of their mindset. Are they open to being coached? Are they willing to think differently? Are they open to taking action in a supported way? Because what we'll sometimes find is people think they want coaching and they don't want to do anything about it. They're much more comfortable in the victim mentality. All they want to do is come and just talk about how bad their life is. And if that's the case, then I'll say, well, it will probably be cheaper to take a bottle of wine down to a friend's if that's all you want to do, So it's about having this open conversation, because I always say that I don't want you to waste your money or my time if you're not going to take the action. Otherwise, it's like going to a gym coach and they're sort of coaching you through it, and then you're sitting there with a pizza and not taking any action. So we've got to have that honest conversation up front. But if they are, then, you know, in terms of price, it can go everything, like say, from pro bono to millions. So it's about finding out about where you are. So what I'll sometimes say to people, like, if somebody really is struggling and they really do need something, I have coached pro bono and occasionally. But then on the other end, I have my my corporate prices. And what that does, that enables me then to spend some of my time doing pro bono. But the thing, it's also really important not to feel guilty about charging the prices, because I mean, I qualified back in 2005. So somebody who's had that amount of experience is going to give you a different experience and potentially get you through things quicker than somebody who's newly trained. But what I do say to people is, if you are struggling on the financial side, there are coaching training providers who have got final year students who are looking for case studies and looking for experience. So that might be a really good place to start.
Very much so. Thank you. That's super. So, Kim, what do you think the difference is between coaching and therapy?
There's such a vast amount of difference, I think. So with coaching, it really is about helping you unlock where you get in your own way, identifying your blind spots. But sometimes, you know, you'll be coaching somebody and you'll realize that potentially they do need to speak to a counselor or speak to somebody who can help them with more therapy, which is not where I sit at all. And I'm always very, very clear that that's not my expertise, and nor would I try and support in that way, because I might get that wrong. You know, I personally, I specialize in leadership coaching. So it's very much more about who they are as a leader and how they better lead their people, their organization, their business. But sometimes, you know, we're human beings, we're multifaceted, and you know, life doesn't sit in a nice, easy box. And sometimes, you know, things happen that mean that we might need some additional support. I think it's about signposting that for people and making sure that they know where they can go to get the right levels of support, and to get people that specialize in their area. You know, one of the things somebody told me many years ago is I had too many coaches in my network, and I was like, no, not really, because actually I want to be helpful to all the people that I know and all the people that I work with. And I don't specialize in every element of coaching. I know the areas that I do specialize in, and I've got great coaches in my network who specialize in areas where I don't specialize. And actually I can introduce them and say, do you know what, for this particular thing, I think you actually need a coach that is more aligned to doing this, or you might need a counselor, or you might need to go and think about some therapy. But it's about being able to support them by signposting that.
Very much so. I mean, I've actually traveled to Guatemala to go and seek out a coach in the style of Tai Chi that I do, because I didn't think there was anyone else in the world who was up to his caliber. So, you know, anyone watching, I'm not really bothered what you think, but that is so important to find the right coaches. Absolutely. So what do you think, Sindy, about the difference between coaching and therapy?
I think it's a really, really important question. So for me, coaching is about taking you from where you are now forward and looking at how you're going to get there, and then maybe identifying some of the blocks on the way. Therapy is often more to do with something from the past, some sort of a block, some sort of a trauma that needs to be dealt with before you feel you can move forward. So I always say that with coaching, we might glance at the past to recognize where something's come from, but we don't dive into it. We don't get really sort of embroiled in unlocking it. And if, like Kim says, you know, if you have got something that is more trauma based, something that is a little bit heavier, then trying to move forward might be like moving forward with a ball and chain around your neck or around your foot. So I'd always say, you know, if there is something like that, maybe get that dealt with first.
Right. And
then use coaching.
So you're talking about sort of self-sabotage because there's a problem that needs dealing with, right? That's what you're sort of saying.
It can be, but it would all be something that you just, so like I'm not trained as a psychologist. So so you might need somebody with more specialist skills to be able to unlock psychologically what's happening. Because otherwise, if we open something up in somebody and we don't know how to hold that space and we don't know how to close it down, we can end up doing more harm than good. So it's really important to have that distinction and to recognize what our limits are.
Right. That's super. I mean, this next question sort of expands a bit on that. So how does coaching differ from other forms of support then, do you think, Sindy?
So in terms of support, do you mean things like therapy and counselling, or?
Well, any kind of support, like in terms of like mentorship or, friends, family, like how does it really differ?
Yeah, so in terms of friends and family,
Mm-hmm.
I think the great thing about coaches is that they're not emotionally involved in the decisions that you make. So they don't try to sway you. I think sometimes with friends and family, even though they want you to do really well, they're scared about you failing. They're scared about you looking a fool. They're scared about you getting hurt. And so they might try to hold you back. With friends, it might also be, well, actually, if you fly, then where does that leave me? So there's that emotional attachment. So having a coach will help you to have somebody who's not emotionally attached to you, and they've got your best interests at heart. In terms of mentoring, so I think with coaching, a coach doesn't need to know the industry or what a person's going through, because what they're skilled at is helping the person to unlock their own wisdom. With mentorship, I think the mentor needs some sort of experience in the area that they're mentoring on, so that they can signpost, so they can share. So in coaching, I would never tell somebody what to do or advise them. But a mentor might say, well, here are some of the things that we've tried in the past, or how about this? Let me introduce you to so and so. So I think there's a subtle difference, and the two can work together. Sometimes, I am also a mentor. So sometimes in a coaching session, I'll say, can I just take my coaching hat off a minute and step into my mentor role? Here are a couple of things you could maybe have a look at. Right now, I'm stepping back into coaching. So it's just so the client knows what the boundaries are between the two, but they can work really well together.
Fantastic. Yeah, that's really very interesting. So what do you think about that, Kim? How does coaching differ from other forms of support?
So I completely agree with Sindy. I think it is about making sure that the person knows what it is that they're getting at what point. And similarly, I do coaching and mentoring, and I try and be really, really clear. Right now I'm coaching, and actually, if you want me to mentor you, I can do that, but let's make sure that you understand we're going in, we're going to mentor for this piece, and then we're going to come back, because the client needs to know exactly what it is that they're getting, what service that they are. And there's certain things that you can mentor on because you've been there and you've done them. And we've all had those moments where people are asking you coaching questions and you're just like, I don't know the answer, could you just tell me, because I really don't know. And that's often where you need a mentor, somebody who can go, well, would it help if I share with you what I did in the same situation when I faced this for company X or Y, and almost that reaching back and showing you the way. And I think at different points you can need a different combination of them. I also agree, sometimes when it is with friends and family, they have your best interests at heart, but often they might not really know how to do the thing that you're looking to do, and therefore they can sometimes feel a little unable to help you, either because they're worried they might ask the wrong question, or to Sindy's point, there is a bit of a fear of, well, if you go and do that, where am I? What's that gonna do for me? So I think for me, it's the balance. It's finding your support team, I guess, particularly for me, for leaders. They've said for years it's lonely at the top. It's certainly not quiet. There's a ever-changing technology, automation, digitalization. Everybody wants an opinion from you. You've got the board, you've got your direct reports. People are looking to you, but where do you go for your time to think, for your ability to work through the questions that are in your head, to make sure that you've got the right support? And I think for me, it's making sure you've got that rounded support. sometimes we do just want to have the person that we can have the bottle of wine with and the pizza and go, do you know what, tactical timeout, I don't want an adult right now, I just want to wallow in my moment of self-pity, and therefore I want my friends around me to be able to do that and like kick me out of my doldrums. But then actually I don't want to live in that space, so I also want to be able to feel like I'm taking action and I'm taking the right action, and that can sometimes be hard to work out what that right action is. And that's for me why I've got coaches, and it's an interesting debate I often get into. I'm a coach, but I have a coach, and someone's like, well, does that not mean that I should just go to your coach? I was like, well, wonderful, absolutely, please do, she's amazing. I said, but actually I've got a coach because we can't see our own blind spots, we're blind to them. And because I really believe in the power of coaching and what it can do to help you unlock, why would I not have one of my own if I genuinely believe having a coach is an amazing thing for people? So, I have my coach to make sure that she's helping me shine a light on my blind spots in the same way that I shine a light on my clients' blind spots, to help them to step into those, to grow into the space that they want to operate in and to fulfill their purpose. Because I think that's, one of the things that I kind of help people with, and I think it's very similar, is defining their purpose first, aligning it to their values, and then they can evolve to their potential. But if either of those two aren't aligned, then actually you're always going to struggle to really fulfill your potential, because we are driven by our values and we're driven by our sense of purpose, by what it is that we want to achieve. And once we understand that and we identify it and it's ours, it doesn't have to be the same as anybody else's. It's our purpose, it's our value set. But once we know those, it becomes so much easier to live the life we want to live.
Very much.
On to that. So, we were talking about us having our own coaches. So quite often my clients are quite shocked when they find out I've got my own coach, my own mentor. Yeah. And they say, well, you're trained as a coach. And I liken it to when you get a job, you work at a certain level, you learn everything there is to know, and then you jump up another level, you get promotion, and then you're starting at the bottom again. And then you go to another level and you're starting at the bottom again. So you hear the analogy about peeling layers of an onion. Our soul will only give us what we're ready to deal with at that time. Mm-hmm. And once we clear that, then new stuff comes up and new stuff comes up. So yeah, it's so important that we do have a coach. So we're still on our journey in exactly the same way that our clients are. We're just a little bit ahead of them.
Yeah, I agree.
There is a thought around that, which is, if you've got somebody you're on level 1, say, and you've got somebody who's on level 10, they can inspire you, but they probably can't make you make choices, because actually you can't see how you're ever going to be able to do what they've done. They're like too far away. You probably want someone who's on rung 3 or 4. So actually you can see that that's going to stretch you. It's going to make you grow, but actually it's not going to send you into mad hysteria or panic at the thought of being able to do it. But obviously once you get to level 4, you need somebody who's going to be on level 7 or 8, so that you can actually really step into your growth, because that's how we learn, isn't it? We learn from other people who have been there and done that and shown us the way. But actually it's got to be that achievable growth, I think.
Very much so. I think revisiting what you both were sort of saying about your friends and family, and how they don't want you to go through pain. I mean, that's a big thing when it comes to like success in life, and taking that chance that you might do really well at, right? Like, they just don't want to see you suffer. And like, I find that really very interesting, how, you kind of become the sum of the 5 to 10 people you hang out with the most, right? And like, this is just absolutely huge. Yeah, absolutely huge. So leading into my next question, what are some ways that you can use coaching to grow your business or improve your life? Kim?
So many ways, to be fair. I mean, as you've said, there's so many different types of coaching. So you could have a life coach, you could have a fitness coach, you can have a business coach, a strategy coach, a leadership coach, communications coach. I mean, pretty much you name it, there'll be a coach out there that specializes in it. It's really about identifying where are the areas where you personally want to grow, where you go, do you know what, these are the things that I really want some support and some help on, where I actually want to just develop my own skill. And then finding the right person that's got that skill. And I think one of the beauties these days of the coaching industry is that people are getting much more specific about what it is that they do. You know, I'm very clear with people that I won't be the right coach for everybody, nor will I coach on things that I don't think are in my wheelhouse. You know, so I personally, maybe it's just, you know, 3 divorces and a stalker, I don't actually coach anybody on anything personal. I don't believe that I have the right to. So, you know, it's not an area of my expertise. Whereas having spent 30 years in corporate life leading teams at board level, can I coach people on how to lead and how to do business strategy? Absolutely. You know, that is an area that I feel that I have a proven track record in, and I know I can help clients with. But the minute it starts to move somewhere else, it will be a case of actually, let me introduce you to somebody who specializes in that area, because you need to get the best support that you possibly can. Whereas I think a few years ago, people would go, I'm a coach, I can coach on anything. And actually these days, you don't want a generalist, you want a specialist. You want someone who is going to really understand and where you are and how to help you get to where you want to be. So I think for me, that's where that's why there's so many different coaches. And I think that's a good thing, because it allows you then to have people that are really specialized in the area that you're trying to address.
Yeah, and if you want to up your game, then you need to be very selective in who you have as coach or coaches, right? I mean, they have to be really very, very good, like you guys, right, ladies? So over to you, Sindy, on this question. What are some ways you can use coaching to grow your business or improve your life?
Okay, so if I think about a couple of people that I've helped from a business point of view. I've helped people grow their business without working on their business. It's just been working on the owner. So I had one who is very careful to protect confidentiality here, who was a female working in a male world and thought she had to behave in a certain way and people would perceive her in a certain way. When we knocked all that out, she went from struggling to turning over 6 figures. And that was just by working on her mindset. I had another one who had a very successful corporate career, set up her own business, was getting the leads, wasn't converting them. Nothing to do with her skills. It was all to do that, self-esteem, self-deservability. She's now got over 20 members of staff working for her because she managed to knock that on the head. So it can really change. And then going on to the niching and being really good at your area. I think what's happened over the last year is people have gotten a lot more comfortable with technology. So I used to have clients who used to say, oh no, I can't do it online. I just want to see you face to face. Whereas now people have been forced to go online. And what's happening as a result is they don't have to choose somebody in their locality. They can actually choose somebody around the world. And then coaches can also coach people around the world. So I think personal branding is going to become really, really important for coaches, where you don't try to be like Kim. You don't try to be a coach to everybody. You pick your niche, you pick your tribe, and then accept that 10% of people are your tribe, 10% of people probably hate you, and 80% of people won't care. So your focus is just on your tribe, on serving the people that you can get the best, results with. And I think social media as well has really opened up the whole thing about putting yourself out there, the way we stand out from our community. So it's about building our communities. It's about changing how we communicate, bringing more personality in. So like Kim, I don't take everybody that comes to me. I'm not the right coach for anybody, for everybody. Remind me of your question again.
No, I think you've answered it.
Have I answered it?
Yeah. It's basically, some of the ways you can use coaching to grow your business or improve your life. And I think you've answered it. What do you think about improving your life? I mean, in monetary ways, but there are obviously other ways as well, right?
Yeah. So I always say that your business, your life, your relationships can only grow to the extent that you do. So if you want to know how you are internally in any area of your life, look at what you're attracting externally. We use the wheel of life in coaching to say what's happening in each area of your life. And quite often when you deal with one area, it impacts on the others. So I've had people who have come to me from a business point of view saying, I'm struggling with building relationships with suppliers and clients. And once we work through that stuff, all of a sudden the relationship with their partner, with their children, with their friends completely changes as well. So I think, when we work on one area, unconsciously we work on every area because it changes us fundamentally at a core belief.
Yeah, very much so. Very much so. So, Kim, where should I start with my own personal development goals as a coach to be?
I think for me, it's working out what is the skill that you can help people with. So who is it that you're looking to serve? What is it that you're going to be able to support somebody to do? Because I think often we start things the wrong way round. We start with where should I be? Whereas actually it should be where's my clients? What is it that they're looking to achieve? Where are their pain points that I can help them with? And how do I go and help them with their pain points? It's a bit like, in big organizations when they go and create changes for their client, but they've not been and asked the clients what they're looking for. It's like you're driven by the wrong desire. We are here to serve. And actually, we can only serve people that need to be served. So I think the questions to ask are not what do you need, but who needs you and why do they need you? And then how do you go and help them with that? How do you give them some of that content? How do you point them in the right direction to be able to get some of their help? And how do you make sure all of the communications that you're having are designed to help and serve the people that you want to help and serve?
Super. So over to you, Sindy, on that one. Where should I start with my own personal development goals as a coach to be?
I would say get training. That is so important. I know that when I was looking for people to train with, in the early days, some people were saying, come for a weekend, give us £500 and we'll give you a certificate to say that you're a coach. And I remember feeling so angry at the time because I was still in my journey of working through my stuff. And I thought, how dare you think that after a weekend you can do anything to yourself, let alone to anybody else. So I would say, look into training, do your due diligence into who you train with. And yes, it's an investment, but I know that I got more out of my own life than I invested in coaching. And we're talking like thousands of pounds back in 2004, 2005. Because what that will do is that will show you some of your blind spots. So, for example, with the training I did, we had the intensive training sort of like week or whatever it was. And then there was co-coaching with mentors listening in, giving you feedback. There was a whole raft. You had a reflective journal around how you'd changed as a result of coaching. So it's really going into detail on yourself first to flush out your beliefs, your stuff that you might bring to a coaching session, and learning how to hold that space for a client so you're not bringing your prejudices, your biases into that session. So first thing, do the research on who to train with, do the training yourself, and then as you go through the process, you'll start to identify what are the areas that you feel passionate about, and then, as Kim says, what do those people in that area want to change that you can help them?
That's fantastic. It reminds me of a time when I was practicing Tai Chi and I'd just broken my collarbone probably 6 months or a year before. And this guy said to me, oh, you're, you need to look at that. Your left arm's lower than your right arm. I said, oh, well, that's nice. So, how much training in Tai Chi have you had? He said, oh, I did a course in 3 months in South Africa. And I just kind of looked at him and smiled and walked off because it takes years, absolutely years to develop the skills to be able to coach people. And I agree completely. You've got to get rid of the biases. That's just like yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Because otherwise you're bringing that into other people's lives, right? And giving them advice when you're not there to really give them advice, are you? You're there to help them on the journey. Yeah. So I've got one last question and then we'll wrap up. And if anyone wants to ask a question, they can drop it in the comments. Do you have any advice for coaches that would make their work easier, Kim?
Yeah, so I would say have a really good process. The things that we learned when we were doing our training, and Cindy, it sounds like it was very similar. You know, you had to do the training, then you had to do the observed coaching sessions, and then you did the follow-up of those, and then you reflected on what you've learned. You do all of that because it's really, really good practice. And it's a really good discipline because it allows you to work through kind of, you know, what are you learning? What worked well for you in that particular conversation? What was the killer question? It's one of the great things that coaches build up over time is a bank of killer questions, those ones that once you put them out there, it just unlocks something for somebody else. But actually, if you're too busy doing it and you don't take that time to reflect and see how you've grown, how you've developed, how did that one work? Have you got a new bank of questions that's really going to help people get out of their own way, unlock that thinking for them so that they can really see a way forward? So, you know, for me, one of the things that I do every week is I go back and I reflect on every session that I've had, and I still fill in my reflective diary because that's how I grow. It's how I learn. It's when I realize that there was a question that really, really worked, I write it down. It's like, brilliant, that's going to be in my little bank of, you know, I'm going to try this one. I'm going to try this one again because I know that it works. I think sometimes the disciplines that we learn when we're training are ones that we should keep with us because actually we had them for a reason. They were a really good way of helping you to learn your craft, to learn your skill. And, you know, one of the questions that I constantly ask myself as a coach is, why am I speaking? So I'll be asking that myself in my head because actually my role as the coach is to be asking the right questions of the client to get them speaking. So if I'm speaking a lot, I'm possibly moving myself into mentoring rather than coaching. So it's a good way of just keeping yourself honest on how you're showing up with that client.
Thank you. So, Cindy, do you have any advice for coaches that would make their work easier?
When you first said that, the thing that came up was once you've had some experience in coaching, learn to use your intuition and get out of your own way in your own head. I remember when I first started, you know, like Kim was saying, you come out with a bank of questions. I remember having all these posters around and thinking, like, what question should I ask? You know, so what happens then? You end up more focused on yourself. Whereas once you've had some experience, once you start becoming more intuitive, you start picking up things that aren't obviously there. And that's where you get your mic drop moments. That's when the bulbs go on, the light bulbs go on. And the other thing is talk to other coaches. You know, don't try and do everything yourself. You know, learn, you know, share best practices. Talk to other coaches. And you know, people say, aren't coaches your competition? And I always say no. If they're properly trained and they're operating from a place of integrity, then they're my you know, they're the people I can collaborate with. My competition are the people who say that their coaches haven't had the training and damage the industry through that reputation. And even then, I believe people do it with the best intention and maybe with a bit of naivety. So there's no knocking them either. But yeah, just be very mindful about who you're actually collaborating with, because you know I always say that when you refer somebody onto somebody else, with that person goes your reputation. So just be really conscious.
Yeah, very much so. So yeah, I mean, if there are any questions, we can answer. But I think we're going to sort of wrap up. And you guys have been really, really insightful with your answers to these super questions. And yeah, I mean, yeah, it's it's an amazing thing to be involved with Master Mindset and the Elite Coaches Club, and people will be hearing a lot more about that over the next few months, weeks, years, whatever. And yeah, it's exciting time right now, I think, for coaches and also for business people, you know, because there's so much knowledge available, but it's actually being able to access the right knowledge, I think. And that's, you know, massively important. Having the right coaches, the right knowledge, the right mentors, and going in the right direction with your purpose and everything is just fantastic, super exciting. So thank you all for watching, and thanks very much, ladies.
Pleasure.
Thank you.